You're listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Privileged enough to be partnered with BetMGM. Now, we're going to be talking about things on this show that BetMGM, you might want to put a little bit of money on BetMGM for, because Arizona's prospects for being better next year are looking better. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live. But for our Arizona audience, you will get up to $100 in bonus bets. Again, $100 in bonus bets, William, on your first wager with BetMGM. Again, make sure you use bonus code PHNX. Back the A. Arizona's going to go over in football this year, and Arizona is going to be better in basketball than I think a lot of people thought. Now, check out the show notes for full details. And now, let's listen to Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
All right, now, joined by Brad Alice, I'm Mike Luke. Brad, how's your face feeling? Every time we talk, it feels like it's like one step removed from being broken. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better. I got a little bit of scar tissue on the eyebrow that can...
Come on, let's see it. Come on, let's see a glamour shot.
Right there.
All right.
The
can
scar...
barely notice it.
Yeah, the scar will be there for forever. It's sore every once in a while just because of the scar tissue. But I mean, I play hockey with it. I'm still pitching batting practice. I'm full go. Have been for weeks.
All right. Speaking of toughness.
Ugly, but it's not like this is the moneymaker. So
No, that is the moneymaker. You will not downplay yourself right there.
I have a face made for radio and a voice made for print.
That's where we are at right now, but that's why we're here. We're online. So, all right. Now, we got Arizona Keshad Johnson, by all accounts, will likely be a Wildcat either today or tomorrow. We're going to talk about what this means. And in Cord Lopez, very good question. We'll get back to this, but I would prefer Keshad Johnson for a variety of reasons, which we can get back to. But Brad, last year, I think it was pretty self-evident that Tommy Lloyd and Arizona probably outperformed expectations during the regular season. But once the NCAA tournament hit, this team just kind of got punked. And they got punked by Princeton again, that it just is what it is. Now, you bring in you lose Kurt Krisa, you bring in Jaden Bradley. That to me is a bump up in toughness right there. Keshad Johnson, if Arizona is able to get him from San Diego State, guy that had 13-4 in the national title game, 7-7. These are the physical players that we want back in the A here, Brad Alice.
Yeah, I think you need to add some physical toughness and some mental toughness, because I think there were times when Kurt Krisa wasn't mentally tough. And that may have spread to other guys on the team. I don't know if Tubelis was a big shot guy. But yeah, you add Bradley and you add Keshad Johnson. Not only does it give you added toughness, it gives you added athleticism. Because let's be frank. Tubelis is not an explosive athlete. As good as he was, Kurt Krisa, a good athlete, smooth athlete, not explosive athlete. Jaden Bradley, at least in what little I have seen of him, appears to be a much more explosive athlete. So this should help you on both the toughness for these kind of games, but defensively, it might even make you better. Right. You saw how good Arizona was with Matherin, Terry, Koloko, 3 premier athletes. And that's why they're in the NBA, because the NBA has become such an athletic league. It's always been great athletes, but now it's phenomenal athleticism. So yeah, you have those, you add those two guys with Boswell, who's fairly athletic, with Ballo, who, while not a jump out of the gym athlete, it moves well for a guy his size, and you see what else you add to this group, because I think they're still going to look to improve either the wing or the backcourt or both. And you've upgraded the toughness and the athleticism. You still got to find some guys who can knock down some shots. And right now, at least in this stage of their career, Bradley and Johnson are not necessarily those guys, but Boswell looks to be. Pelle Larsson can be. Obviously, Ballo is a guy who can score some baskets. We'll see how the European Krivas is, and potentially another European.
We're going to get to those. We'll get to those guys. For
sure. So I still think you need another shot maker. But if you look at his highlights, Keshad Johnson, and I think I watched something like 50% of his field goals were in a YouTube clip. He's a guy who gets out on the break. He can move without the ball. He loves the mid-range jumper, but he's not very good at it. And we can talk about why that might be a good thing for the staff. But yeah, I think Arizona has severely helped themselves in an athleticism standpoint, which I think goes a long way in this Tommy Lloyd system.
Okay, Aiden, if we have that graphic in there about Keshad Johnson's strengths and weaknesses, if we could maybe throw that one in there. Yes, all right. So here's what you're looking at. Physicality, rebounding, interior scoring. He's obviously not like you said, Brad, he's not a shooter, but this is what Arizona needs. And I keep getting people that say, well, he averaged 7 points and 7 rebounds. How really good can he be? You got to remember, though, at San Diego State, and thanks, Aiden, fantastic. At San Diego State, it is a different style of basketball. It just is. They're not going to get up and down. They're not going to run like the Tommy gun's going to have his guys going. So I believe, and again, I'm not saying that he's a better player at this point, but I would say that you could probably extrapolate that out over the same minutes, probably being 11-9, something like that. There's going to be more possessions. There's going to be quicker shots, more opportunities for rebounding as well there, William.
Yeah, certainly on the offensive end, which is something he does fairly well. He's about a 25% outside shooter. He's just barely a maybe keep you honest guy. Again, he loves the elbow jumper. I think I saw about 15 of them on his YouTube clip. Early in the season, he couldn't hit them at all.
Right.
But they were all back iron. They were all on target. So this is if suddenly he can hit that shot, and suddenly Bradley becomes a 10 or 12, 13 point a game scorer, suddenly you have Tommy Lloyd with a new sales pitch. Oh, you got 5-star talent, but you didn't play well your first year or two at your school? Come here, I'll develop you.
Right.
Quick fix. Look what I did for Math. He turned Matherin from a fringe lottery first-round pick.
First-round pick into a top 6-7 pick.
First-team All-American.
Right.
So, again, I don't know if they can do that because obviously Kirk Krisa was no different than the guy we saw under Sean Miller. But if you can, again, figure out what in his mechanics makes him hit back iron, because I saw, again, 5 or 6 back irons in a row, and they were kind of showing his field goal attempts in order on this YouTube clip I found, or at least somewhat. I mean, they kept splicing in Maui clips all over the place, but he kept hitting back iron. But that seems like it's something that's fixable. And if he can hit that, he also likes this little dribble drive fadeaway that he was somewhat effective with. But what you really need him to do is get out on transition, pick and roll, screen and roll, and clean up the glass. And he does that very, very well. But the guy must have had 20 transition dunks and lay-ins this last season.
And that's one thing.
Which could be very good for this Arizona team. And
that's a great point, too. The way that he runs the court is very Tabellas-esque. But I will say, how many times did you watch? And again, I don't want to poo on Zoo. That rhymed right there, poo on Zoo. I don't want to poo on Zoo, but, because he was a fantastic player. But there were a lot of times where he just didn't look engaged. Maybe he was engaged, but he just didn't look engaged. He would go long stretches for that as well. This kid, while he doesn't have the offensive skills that Zoo does, there's not going to be many times where you watch and you're like, man, is Keshad Johnson engaged right now? I don't see that ever being an issue while he's going to be on the court.
Well, I think you have to look at it. Keshad Johnson's Zoo was option number 1.
Right.
And I don't know who option number 1 is right now. I'm assuming it might be Boswell.
Right.
Which, again, I like and I don't like. But Keshad Johnson is essentially a role player. And I don't mean that as a disservice. He's a better version, even though maybe less, probably equally versatile in different ways. From the kid from Campbell, whose name just escaped me because I'm old.
Cedric Henderson.
Henderson was more of a wing who could occasionally slide to the 4. This is a forward, can occasionally slide to the 3. But what you want him to do is, again, be a guy who gets garbage buckets. Be a guy who works that screen and roll. Be a guy who, interestingly enough, can play off of Ballo and the other bigs and get you 25 minutes at the 4 and 5 minutes at the 3.
I do believe that he's going to be. When I look at the numbers, and we're going to break down kind of what the numbers look like. I believe that you now have 5 guys that will play 25 plus minutes per game. And Aiden, actually, hold on. Actually, more important things real quickly. Brad, when was the last time you went to Circle K?
Yesterday.
All right, that is the thing. When we bring up Circle K, everybody's been there. We had Sheer on yesterday, and there were 2. Get a load of this, Brad. He has 2 Circle Ks across the street from his house, I guess, on competing intersections. So that's where it's at. Circle K. Make sure you're not missing out on the great stuff. Right now, text PHNX to 31310 to join their SMS subscriber club and get a buy one, get one free offer on a 32-ounce Polar Pop. Head to circlek.com/store locator to find the Circle K near you. And what goes with Circle K? 4 Peaks. Now, you could probably find 4 Peaks at Circle K right there. You could get the Kilt Lifter, Kobe Thiel's favorite right there. Check out 4 Peaks Brew or 4 Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest on Arizona's hometown brewery. Must be 21 or up to enjoy 4 Peaks. Please drink responsibly. All kinds of fun events with the official brew of PHNX Sports right there. Okay.
And Circle K, the official pre-game, pre-practice destination of Tyler Alice before baseball.
Telling you, everybody has a connection to Circle K. And if you don't have a connection to Circle K, you've probably been living under a tree. Or no, not living under a tree.
Or Lithuania, like half of Arizona's basketball team.
Living under a rock. All right, Aiden, if we could bring up that roster now, let's look at this roster composition right here. Now, all right, so you got Kylan Boswell, going to play 25 minutes plus. Oumar Ballo, going to play 25 minutes plus. Pelle Larsson, going to play 25 minutes plus. Jaden Bradley, Keshad Johnson in that same realm. You know what this is starting to feel a little bit like to me, William? A little bit like that 95-96 Arizona team. A little bit different, but kind of feels solid across the board. Tough. Not sure that there's a superstar, but not sure that you need one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good comparison because, that team was really good, but didn't have that guy. Now, I should say
Ben Davis
didn't have that guy who was ready for prime time. Yeah, they had Ben Davis, but they had Miles Simon and Dickerson, but they were role players off the bench.
Right.
We didn't know they were that guy yet, and we may be saying that about Big Mo. I think I don't know. Do we call him Big Mo, Big Monty, Krivas? We don't know what we're going to get out of Vesar. But right now, again, it looks like it's going to be one of those teams that you just hope you have 3 guys who can at some point go off for 20 when you need it. Because right now, it's still in doubt. Again, we like Boswell's upside. We don't know what KJ Lewis is going to be. I think it seems like he's probably a year away. We don't know what kind of development we're going to get out of Fili B and Vesar. So here's what you're going to get for sure. You're going to get 14 and 9 out of Ballo. You're going to get minimum 10 and 8 out of Johnson. You're going to get, a combined, 18 points out of the 2 guards. It may be more, but that's what we know they have. Pelle Larsson is good for 9. But that's what becomes very interesting. All of these guys have averaged somewhere around 7 to 10 points, with the exception of Ballo. I think, what was he, 13, 14 last year?
Ballo was 14 and 8. Leader of men, Oumar Ballo.
So while you don't have that proven score, you've got 5 or 6 guys who've proven they can play at this level and played pretty well. So you assume the natural progression. And that's the one interesting thing we've seen about this coaching staff. Everyone's gotten a little bit better each year because, I looked at it, and under Miller and even under Lute, typically what you were as a sophomore, 8 times out of 10 is what you were as a senior if you stayed that long. But, last year, Zoo proved me wrong. You asked me if he could get 18. I said, I don't know. I think 16 might be the one.
Zoo said, I'll get you 20.
Yeah, so 19, 20. So, Ballo made another incremental jump. I would not be shocked to see that again.
Let's talk about Oumar.
The only guy I'm not sure can make an incremental jump because he just hasn't done it is Pelle Larsson, who just may be what he is. And we may turn around and find out that birth certificate's forged and he's been 30 years old this whole time.
Let's talk about Oumar a little bit next to Keshad Johnson right there, because Oumar, again, was 14-8. A lot of people kind of go back and forth on and kind of vacillate. How much better can Oumar Ballo get? Because he got into better shape this year. He's always going to be kind of a heavy-footed, kind of slow twitch player. Again, Oumar Ballo is a leader of men, so that is not a put down to Oumar Ballo. But when you've got both these guys next to each other, neither one's really a shooter, obviously. Oumar Ballo's got the little push shot, which doesn't really count. And Keshad Johnson, not really a shooter either. Is the plan to just kind of beat you up down low?
See, I don't know because I don't know what kind of development we're going to get out of both guys.
Well, I don't think Oumar is going to be a three-point shooter this year.
No, but could Oumar develop a 12-foot jumper as opposed to the push shot?
Mm-hmm.
Would that shock you?
I see it.
What I think they do, though, is I think it's easier for each guy to play off of each other than it was with Zoo, who in all essence is a center. I mean, he's
right.
Again, he measured 6'9" or whatever, but he was a 6'11" center. Johnson's going to basically, I think, almost be like a satellite around Ballo. Ballo will be Jupiter and he'll be, Gallo or whatever. Because he doesn't need to establish. He doesn't work that well. Establish himself on the block. So Ballo establishes himself on the block. Johnson's on the other end. Or he's out there setting a pick and he's rolling. Because he did that a lot at San Diego State. Pick and roll, screen and roll, where he'd get wide open under the basket. So I think they're going to work very well together, and it's going to make maybe free up Ballo just a little bit more. Now, I'm also intrigued to see what happens when you do put Ballo out there with 7-foot Henry Vasar, 7'1" or 2.
We're gonna have a lot of peaks this coming year.
I don't know. I think this spells fifth peak for our good
4 peaks plus 1. That's what we're going to do. It's going to be a 4 peaks plus 1. So they're always the 4 peaks for his development.
Maybe he redshirts, but again, I think they're going to be able to throw a lot of different looks at you. I think there are going to be times where they're going to throw Johnson out at the 3. He's not a good shooter, but he can put the ball on the floor a little bit. He makes you very athletic, and you kind of let your guards work. So I think there's a lot of position flexibility, which is kind of the name of the game for this modern game anyways.
Well, let's talk. Andrew Ballo makes a great point. Andrew Ballo always makes great points. He said Kerr didn't do that. He's a good passer, but lacked as a paint threat. Actually, no, I put on the wrong one right there. The playmaking and penetration of Boswell will open things up for Pelle and Ballo. I think there's something to that, William, because think of it from this perspective. Kerr, while he did many good things and he was a good passer, Kerr never got into the paint, really. I mean, Kerr never penetrated.
No, it's not lava to him.
It was just something that he wasn't going to do. Now with Bradley and Boswell, I think you're going to have guys that are going to be in the paint a lot more as opposed to the last couple of years where you had a point guard that for all of his some of his skills, never really stressed a defense off penetration.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things, and I think that's something you needed against Princeton. That's one reason I'm not a big criticizer of Tommy Lloyd, but I thought the fact that he did not go more with Boswell, because especially when you get deep in the tournament and you're playing in these cavernous arenas, sometimes you got to attack the paint. Right. And you need a guy who wants to get in the lane. And if you look at the great Arizona point guards, they were able to at least get into the paint, and maybe not deep, but you had, again, I go back, Lute Olson's teams always seemed like a video game, the old Sega games where each guy had a secret move. Yeah. It was the Miles Simon leaner, it was the Jed Bushler jump stop, it was the Jason Gardner step back.
The Miles Simon up and under I liked very much.
Terry had that little floater.
Yeah.
You need guys who can do that because, again, for the most part, Kirk Krisa was either three-pointer or layup in transition. There wasn't much more. And here's the other reason you need it. If there's no threat of you driving, there's no threat of the drive and dish. There's no threat of, it opens up more screen and rolls and things like that because guys are worried about the drive. And with Boswell being a very physical type of player, I think it makes a lot of sense. I haven't seen a ton of Bradley, but I know he did a lot, moving with the ball, putting the ball on the floor, dribbling. Yeah, so I think it's very important.
Okay, now, Rich Carrillo. All right, Rich. I was hoping you were going to hop in here today. Rich has been adamant that he wants toughness out there, that he wants tough players, and I agree with you, Rich. This is the kind of
when you come from the mean streets of the HB and SoCal,
when you come from the slums of Huntington Beach, you're going to want tough players. I think that's easily the best way to put it. But Rich, this is the kind of guy that you want. These are the tough players. Jaden Bradley's much the same way. I know you're out on the international guys. I get it. But this is the kind of player that Rich Carrillo has been calling for, Brad Alice.
No, he does. He brings toughness. Again, just look at San Diego State. San Diego State's a Big East team playing in San Diego. And they have been since Fisher was there. Right. I mean, they've been athletic, but they've never been like a wide open finesse. No, they play defense, they rebound. They beat you up, and that's what Johnson is going to do. And, to answer the other question, I think Kaluma has higher upside. I think Kaluma has higher scoring ability. But Johnson fills that niche that Arizona needs, and that is toughness, that is rebounding, that is defense. And frankly, Kaluma...
Say it.
He's kind of a me first guy. He's looking for the league. That's why he's in there now. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing because all these guys are looking for the league. But Johnson, I think really, it's funny. He's leaving a team that played for the national title, but he's looking to win. Right. He is looking to showcase himself, but he's looking to win. And that's why I think he comes to Arizona. He provides that toughness, but he also gets some opportunities he's not going to get at San Diego State when you're trying to score 85 or 90 a game, when they're trying to score 55 or 60 a game, to showcase himself for the league as well. But I think Johnson's just more of a team player. That being said, I think Kaluma could have filled that scoring void that I'm still not sure Arizona has totally solved. But Johnson is, I think, a lower floor, higher and lower ceiling guy, whereas Kaluma has a lower floor and higher ceiling.
Yeah, Cord, that's exactly the way I would put it. My big thing this entire offseason was I needed, and again, every time I say something like this, I always have to preface it by saying I'm sitting here with a bunch of back the A stuff behind me, and this is the winningest coach in college hoops history the first 2 years. But I was really interested to see this offseason, not so much the kind of players not so much the 5-star player he was going to get, but what kind of player he was going to add. And adding Jaden Bradley and adding Keshad Johnson to that lineup, I think ultimately is going to be benefits for both. Kaluma is a little bit different because, again, Kaluma's looking to get his. Nothing wrong with that. But I wanted a guy in here that could basically play a much better, more glorified Eugene Edgerson role. Again, much better. But again, I'm going to state this again. Just because Keshad Johnson averaged 7 and 7 at San Diego State doesn't mean that he's not going to average 11 and 9 or something like that at Arizona. Because again, San Diego State runs a much slower pace than Arizona does. I think you're going to see his numbers go up, and he's going to be playing that same defense as well. I think that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind when they look at Keshad Johnson's numbers, William.
And again, I'm very curious to see what this staff with essentially a full offseason can do to give him one more thing. Again, he likes that elbow jumper. He also really likes the back you down fadeaway. And if they can get one of those as a 40% shot, 45% shot, I think it makes him a very interesting and somewhat dangerous player when you combine that with the other things. I'm not saying they can do that. Just like I know, Rich was asking about Ballo. I don't know if we're ever going to take the next step with his stroke. It may always be the shot, but
you imagine Ballo coming out with the sky hook, the running sky.
The fact that no one tries that still baffles me. And part of the reason I'm biased, in the front yard of the Alice household, big old 5'8", 5'9" Arthur Alice used to put on the rec spec goggles and come out and skyhook me to death.
I bet he did. The great Arthur Alice right there going after William Alice. Now, you might say, where can I watch more of these guys? Or you might say to yourself, how can I watch less of these guys? What mechanism would put them on that I could avoid these guys? Here's the answer. Fubo TV. All right, you can watch the Wildcats with Fubo TV. Use the link in the description to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. Give you an idea, it's hip with the kids. Aiden Wall behind the scenes, making us look better than we should. I would assume that he has Fubo TV because all the kids have it. They're on the trendy, cutting edge of everything, and that's why you want to get it as well. 140 live channels of sports shows, movies, and news, and Tap and Bottle. The Tap and Bottle watch parties. William Brad Alice has been to these Tap and Bottle watch parties. I am not lying.
You're not.
You've been there with the family. You've gone solo and you've been with the family multiple times. So again, that is the epitome of what you're looking for. A place you can go with the guys or a place that you can bring the precocious Tyler Alice and hang out as well. Maybe after he just got done fanning 10 kids in a Little League game. That's where it is. Tap and Bottle, North Side or downtown. All right. I wanted to get your take. By the way, Aaron Torres gave a back the A today. Oh, yeah, I was tagged in it. That's how cool I felt about it. All right, Brad, I want to get your take a little bit on some of the newcomers now because we have a massive front court here at the U of A. Motiejus, Krivas. I am on the fence about it. I know Rich Carrillo is probably not a fan of him, but he's definitely big, and he's got some pretty good footwork for a man that big.
Yeah, he's not an explosive athlete. He's not Coloco, but he's not a stiff. He moves well. He's got good footwork. He can get up and down the court. He's physically a little more mature than most 18-year-old 7'2" guys. Does he still need 20 pounds of muscle? Probably, but he's a good 245. 250, maybe even 255. I mean, he looks
big boned. He's
got some definition in the arms. I like him. Do I love him? No. But he looks more physically mature than Vesar.
What do you hope he could be? Do you hope he can be Tarzuski?
I think he's a different player. I think he can be a scorer down low. I think he can be a guy who can get you 12 and 8 if he stays long enough. Honestly, I think he can be a bigger version of Tubelis. Tubelis is who his offensive game kind of reminds me of. Right. He might be a better deep outside shooter, not quite as, but he gets a lot of that soft touch inside when he's moving. That was what Tubelis did so well. He didn't have to have his feet set. He didn't have to have, he was falling away and he'd kind of put up that little floating scoop shot and go in. And this kid does it. So I like him. What I also like is he's a shot blocker. Now, whether that's going to translate to very athletic D1 players, I don't know. I believe we were watching him play, that under 20, under 19 club on his club team. But he played, at a high level. So I like him. I know there's another name floating out there. I've watched his tape. I don't think he's as polished physically. Right. But I like Krivas. I think, to me, he seems like he's coming in a little more polished. Again, maybe a lower ceiling than Vesar, but I think, and again, the big thing with Vesar is how much has he improved now in a year. But Krivas, I think, is a little ahead of where Vesar was last year physically, which, again, could go a long way in making him that fourth peak.
I'm at the point with with international players where I don't know really what to expect. Listen, Tommy Lloyd has done, you can watch the NBA playoffs right now, and you could see half the international players are players from Rui to Hachimura to Olenek. These are all guys that Tommy Lloyd recruited, so he's got a good track record. At Arizona, though, again, it's just different. Like Henry Vesar, not beating up on the services, but Henry Vesar was supposed to come in and be an instant contributor. Now, again, maybe he turns out to be an All-American. Maybe he turns out to be an NBA player. But so far, just with international guys at U of A, it's 0 for 3 as far as instant contributions right there, William.
Yeah, but really, if you look at going back to Sean Miller's international guys, it's 1.5.
I disagree. Sean Miller had a good international players. You had Lowry, very good.
Lowry's the biggest impact, yes.
You had Azulis, who was an immediate impact too.
Okay, I mean, but
12-7.
Yeah, he's good.
7.
Yeah. So those are the two. And again, I don't know if I know I don't count Matherin because
me neither.
He's playing in Canada, and Canada's basically, even if it's Montreal, it's basically like playing in Syracuse. Or
Daniel Baccio turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, but he wasn't ready to compete right away. And again, I'm not saying long term. Long term, Miller's track record is very good, but that instant impact. And again, you have to remember, different style of game.
Right.
A bigger, as weird as it sounds, a bigger emphasis on school than you have in Europe. Those guys are basically pros. Not that they're not in America. You got to get used to America. The language, the food, the travel. So it's a big adjustment, and some guys make it quickly and some don't, and some never do. So I'm not counting on Krivas to provide much, but watching his film, and again, by watching his film, I watched 4.5 minutes of YouTube videos. But
Brad, you're an expert.
I like what I saw. Do I love? No. Like, I watched Carter Bryant, and I'm like, Carter Bryant's coming in. He's a starter. I watched this kid and go, yeah, this kid has upside. In a couple of years, he might be something. Doesn't mean he can't play, right now.
One thing that I think I can assure everybody, and Brad, slap me if I'm wrong, I don't believe you'll ever see Ballo and Krivas on the court at the same time.
No, I don't think so. Although it would be interesting because one guy eats up a ton of space and the other one can block shots. I mean, not that Ballo can't block shots, but I think Krivas has a potential. I don't think he'll ever be Koloko, but I think he could be a pretty good shot blocker.
Right.
His timing timing on not the most athletic guys driving the lane, but against good high-end European players. So, I think he can provide something that they didn't have. And I think, again, I'm looking at people throwing up I think Ristic might be the
Ristic. That's 3 Sean Miller instant impact players right there, William.
Well, remember, it took Ristic most of that first year. Remember, he had a couple good games at this, but I think Ristic might be a better shot blocking. Ristic might be the ceiling for.
Wait a second. Is a shot blocking Ristic though? Isn't that maybe an NBA player?
Maybe.
All right.
If he can move well enough and knock down the 20-footer, yeah.
All right. I want to make the case here for somebody. Everybody's talking about the guards coming in. Who are you going to add? And I know a lot of people are out on this. They don't like who I'm going to suggest, but I am going to back Tucson. I'm going to back the A right here. I would pursue DeMarco Dunn. He's from your neck of the woods, Marana. Here's what I can tell you about DeMarco. He's a North Carolina transfer. He was a top 50 kid in high school. Didn't play a ton at North Carolina. I get all of that. And granted, I didn't watch him much at North Carolina because he didn't play a ton. But I can tell you this. He's legitimately 6'3", 4", something like that. He's a good athlete. He can defend. He has a little bit of secondary ball handling. Sure, you'd like somebody with more of a polished resume, I guess. But I like DeMarco Dunn in that role, Brad. What say you?
I like DeMarco Dunn if you're adding one other guy.
Sure.
Or you're sold KJ Lewis can come in and give you meaningful minutes. Because I don't want a guy who needs to come in and play 25 minutes. I want a guy who's going to be happy basically sliding in next to Boswell and or Bradley to be the off guard while the other guy catches a break, who is going to be happy playing 12, 13 minutes. I think in a perfect world, you bring in a kid like that. One guy, I was thinking maybe you get a mid-major guy who just wants that one run.
Right, exactly.
But I think Dunn is that same guy. I still think they need one more wing. And I know the kid who's out there, he looks more like a 4 to me. So I still think you need a 6'5" to 6'6" athletic wing.
You want a Cedric Henderson.
Yeah. You need that guy. I'd rather have a slightly better version than Cedric, but Cedric Henderson would be perfect. Just because I don't want to have to rely on Pelle Larsson as my only true wing, who's not really a wing anyways. He's really more of an off guard. I don't know what Pelle is, but Pelle's Pelle. Apologies to Pelle. But if you can bring in Dunn and he's happy with that role and he'll play 12, 13 minutes and may never be a starter at Arizona because of the other guards you have coming in next year, but is going to basically be this year's version of Kyer, of these third, fourth guards, then I'm fine with that. And if, again, I think you sell.
So Brad Allis signs off on DeMarco Dunn. Big picture.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because, again, to me, to perfectly round out this roster, I want a wing who can push Pelle, and I want a guard who's happy.
Let me ask you a question here. I keep getting people that ask me this when I put out names. They're like, "Well, it's going to be hard to get somebody because because the small forward spot is all starting small forward spot is already spoken for." Again, I was wrong on Pelle. My bad, Pelle. I always need to say this, but Pelle as a starter last year was not good. So I don't know why there's this jump to, well, I mean, of course, Pelle's got to start. I don't get that one.
No, the guy I kind of wanted was Trey White. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to use him as an example.
Yeah.
If you're Trey White, are you afraid of Pelle Larsson?
No.
Now, if you're a guard if you want to come into a situation where there's no competition, sure, Pelle Larsson's good enough because Pelle's going to play 20 minutes. But that doesn't mean you can't play 25 or 30 minutes because Pelle's going to slide over and give you guard depth. So to me, and again, I'm going to be very interested to see who pulls their name out of the draft, who's still in the transfer portal. But I would love to see them bring in an athletic, even at the very least, just a compliment to Pelle, a long athletic wing in that mold of the Arizona Wings under Olsen. Again, doesn't have to be that good, doesn't have to be an NBA guy, but I want to, I'd love to get a guy between 6'6", 6'7", long arms, can play some defense. If you can get a guy who's a big time scorer, even better. I don't know if that guy's out there, but there's still room on this team for a superstar, to be honest. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that guy's out there, or even because you don't have an alpha right now.
You don't have an alpha.
Might be Boswell, might be Ballo, but it's not a guarantee. So if you're a guy who I don't want to go in the second round, but I don't want to go back to my school. Wait, I can go play for Tommy Lloyd and score 16 a game and be first team all Pac-12 and lead a team that's now looking pretty stacked. It's a nice place to be.
Let's talk about beating out Kentucky possibly for a player. But first, you spoke about alphas. I am going to give you the ultimate alpha restaurant right here. Illegal Pete's. Brad, have you been to Illegal Pete's?
I've actually never been there. I've eaten Illegal Pete's many times.
All right.
It's been brought home before, yes.
All right. Well, that's, you know what? Sometimes if you're too lazy to go, you get the food either way. But the best thing is that Brad Allis has consumed Illegal Pete's. You could stop into either their Tucson or Tempe location. You know this is written by somebody from out of town because the Tucson is spelled Tuscon, or Tempe locations for
Unless there's one in Italy.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say maybe there's one in Italy as well. And you know what? At that point, I would apologize.
And then they misspelled Tuscany.
Right. Yes, for sure. You can go to their Tucson or Tempe locations for a beer bucket for you and the whole crew. 5 pints for $15. Soak up the surf with a loaded burrito and crisp beer on the patio. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. And yes, figure it out, AZ. He is not Cody Williams. Totally agree with that. But you know what? I think they kind of dropped the ball on that recruitment, but nothing's going to be perfect there. I think Lloyd has figured it out. Now,
I think they dropped the ball there, and I'm not sure you're going to get him even if you rolled out the red carpet because I think the kid wants to be a big fish in a small pond like his brother was.
He's still one of those guys, though. You got to recruit him till the very end. Totally.
Absolutely. I don't think they played it right. You know what? Again, Arizona was never going to get him, but you recruit Bijan Robinson like there's no tomorrow.
Correct. And Jed Fish would have recruited him until
Jed Fish would have. And if you lose out on – but what are you spending? $150 in gas over 5 years?
and if you gassed up at Circle K, you could get a lot of good stuff on your way there. You can kill a lot of birds with one stone.
And walk over to South Point.
Right. I agree. I've always thought that was an interesting, well, we couldn't get him. We won't recruit him. Yeah. Arizona beating out Kentucky, though, because here's what you got to remember, though, ladies and gentlemen. This was a big Kentucky wanted him. And if you look on Twitter, you look at the Kentucky insiders, they're saying that this is a guy that Kentucky really wanted. And it makes sense why. Because Kentucky's going to have, first of all, they've been kind of dysfunctional lately. And Kentucky's going to have 9 top 5 players coming in this year. When John Calipari's been at his best, he's had a few upperclassmen that were good, that were in the rotation. Keshad Johnson could have been that guy. Keshad Johnson would have played at Kentucky.
Yeah, but what I think he gets at Arizona is I think he gets more guaranteed minutes and a bigger role.
Agreed.
And frankly, if he can refine his game, and I don't know he can. What is he, 21 years old? I mean, he may be what he is. But if, again, he can – if Ricardo Foy or Jack Murphy is a wizard with the jump shot and he can get that mid-range to fall a little bit, or even the 3, and not even at a high rate, but if he can even be get up to about 33% from 25% at 3, and you're a good team in the NBA, don't you think, man, we can use this guy off the bench to D up? Because I think he can D threes, to be honest. Right. I think he's that athletic. So again, I think he was saying, I got a chance to go to Arizona, have a bigger role and showcase myself. And again, it's Kentucky. It's hard to say no to, but it's also Arizona. It should be hard to say no to.
Jervis Williams, you hit the nail on the head right there in a way that I failed to. Getting a win over Kentucky in the portal will hopefully shut some of the courageous keyboard heroes up. Jervis, that's why we rely on the listeners out there, because
but it won't, because they all want Kaluma.
Yeah, I mean,
that's how it is with keyboard war. I haven't had to do a message board now in 5 years. God, love it. I haven't had to do talk radio in 2 or 3 years. The people who want to complain are going to find a reason to complain. They don't like Jaden Bradley because he only scored 6 points last year at Alabama.
On the most talented team in the country as a freshman.
They want Kaluma because he's a sexier name. Never mind, you're getting the starting power forward off the national runner-up.
Right.
Euros they're all soft till they're not, and then Carter Bryant has dropped in the rankings 3 spots. Whatever.
Is he really that good?
Yeah. So they're always going to be that guy because that's what they like to do. Just like there are some fanboys out there. Again, there's the opposite too. Krivas is the next Jokic. Jaden Bradley is one and done because he's going to.
Jaden Bradley is essentially Gilbert Arenas, who wasn't utilized properly in Alabama.
Ballo is going to, reinvent the game, and he's going to make DeAndre Ayton look.
Hey, we're not diminishing that possibility, though.
No, Ballo, so there are those people, but we've seen it with football. No matter what Arizona football does, it's either Jed Fish, we got to sign him to a lifetime contract because he's won 6 games, or Jed Fish doesn't know what he's doing, and that's 30% of your fandom, but it's 80% of your Twitter people.
All right.
That being said, if Krivas is the next Jokic, I'm saving this clip and I'm putting it out there.
Derek Pivko makes a great point. I got to give some Fili B love right here because I said on the show yesterday, and again, take this for what it's worth because I am wrong on all kinds of things all the time. I don't believe Fili B is probably ever going to be a contributor at the U of A. That said, I hope Fili B is here all 5 years in a Justin Wessel role at the very where he has fun, he enjoys the college scene, because Fili B gets life. When you see Fili B on campus walking around, he knows he's on the basketball team. He also knows that he's Fili B. Second of all, again, I would love to be wrong on here. I would love Fili B to be dropping 10, 15 points per game at some point, and I can start a My Bad Fili B hashtag movement as well. I just don't really see it. Dirty Dancer, Fili B has a way better shot than Dylan to contribute. Be nice to Dylan. That's a cheap shot towards Dylan. We don't like that. What say you about that, Brad Alice?
I have no idea what Fili B is because, again, I've seen him play 12 minutes of college basketball and basically play against a chair on a YouTube video. If he can have if he can be Justin Wessel, that would be great.
Take it.
Justin was plagued by some injury stuff, but Justin played some meaningful minutes as an upperclassman. He married Stephanie Saragosa. If you ever saw Stephanie Saragosa, the volleyball player,
he's doing all right for himself.
She was lovely. And one hell of a volleyball player. And I don't know if they're still together because I lost track of Justin. Justin and I were actually fairly friendly. But I want stock in those kids because Justin's deceptive.
You stocked the kids? I thought I
want to buy stock in their children. Because she was about 6'2", he was about 6'9", and she was a great volleyball player, and he was an okay basketball player.
Cedar Rapids' finest.
Yeah, from my wife's neck of the woods, actually, in Iowa. So again, if you can have if Fili B can be Wessel, great, and if Fili B's out in a year, I wish him the best wherever he's playing.
Either way, Fili B.
I'm rooting for Adama Ball. I want Adama Ball to do really well, and I'll admit I think I was wrong on Adama Ball.
Either way, Fili B, we want you to live the best life Fili B can. And again, speaking of living the best life you can.
Have we seen Fili B's girlfriend? I mean, that's half the battle.
I would imagine just watching his strut, watching the way that he dresses around campus, Fili B's probably doing all right for himself right there. So again, let's see. Oh, I wonder if this is Brad Alice's old friend Tate. Huntsy 64. I do wonder if that is Tate right there. If it is Tate, you're no good. But Brad,
mad if it's Tate. All the Tate's mad at me. But
is Tate mad at you?
Yeah.
Why is he mad at you?
Because he doesn't like you. But
I don't blame you. I don't blame it. But Tate,
I still like Tate.
All right, that's a you problem there, Tate. All right, now,
and you know what? And I could make an argument for if Jed wins less than 5 games, but I think if he wins 5 games, he's safe.
All right, now again, Brad, before we sign off, and again, we're going to have an emergency podcast for everybody out there when the commitment goes down. But first things first, Brad Alice, you've been back on the podcast game. By the way, you asked a dumb question on Twitter that I am going to ridicule you for. You said, should I put my opinions out? Brad, they're your opinions. It's your podcast. You put them down.
I also want to serve my fan base. But yeah, the JDL one will. Every time I think it's done, another thing comes out legally, and I want to add it. So it's going to end up being about 35 minutes. It will be out. Speaking of emergency pods, I have already pre-recorded 2 different Keshad Johnson ones, just in case. The podcast's back. It's still probably for now only going to be once or twice a week. Just finding time to record them has been difficult just with the schedule, but I do appreciate the core listenership after a few months off is already back. So the views, not quite the views you get here, but they're pretty
Brad,
good.
Come on, dude. Listen, it's your opinion. You're a legend in the city. People know who you are. They respect your opinion. If you ever put that tweet out again, you will be in a lot of trouble.
Okay. Well, what if I ask, do you want a detailed 20-minute breakdown on the new Metallica album? Do I?
You know what, Brad? It's your space. You do you. By the way, Jervis Williams, I apologize. I forgot to put that up. We don't know. I'll give you a little bit of inside info. That it could go down today, to be honest with you. I know that it's supposed to. Go tomorrow, but maybe it goes down today. By the way, Tate, we appreciate you being the wily one hopping in here as Huntsy 64. But Brad Alice, as always, we appreciate you. We'll be back in your normal spot next Tuesday, Brad. Appreciate you as always, my guy.
Anytime.
All right, I'm Mike Luke. That's Brad Alice and Aiden behind the scenes, managing everything, making us cool. Aiden will be hopping on here next show. We are going to make sure that Aiden hops on here. It's not getting out of it like Jacob Franklin does. On that note, we'll be back with you. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.